you very much, everyone. Very nice to see you all here today. I'm quite actually impressed, by Rommel telling me that by 2 p.m. all the presentations from this morning are going to be uploaded onto the website. So continuous delivery, eat your own dog food. I'm pretty impressed. I'm actually going to start with 3 apologies. The first one is I'm a marketing guy. The good news is I'm talking purely about independent market research, so it's all third party. The second one is I'm one of the few guys wearing a suit, but I've got rid of the tie, I've rolled up the sleeves, I am one of you. And the third one is you're all much better at coding than I am. And the bad news is it'll stay like that. So we'll just kick off. So today is really just talking about some of the research that we've done across Europe in terms of the different countries and their views on DevOps, how they're perceiving it, how they're identifying which areas that it can tackle. And also, one of the most important aspects, I'll save almost the most interesting to the end, so you do stay and you don't disappear for lunch, is some of the metrics that actually show, as we all believe, is that DevOps is working. It is actually making a significant business impact. So I'll just start with some good news initially. These are the Google searches for the term DevOps over the last kind of 2 years or so. I don't have the exact index here. It's basically being simplified. But the key thing here, in absolute terms, you can see the trend is very much upwards and a massive ramp up from the start of this year, which is great, great news. So people are getting it. People are believing. People are wanting to find out more. Gartner recently mentioned that the searches for the term DevOps over the last 8 months are more than the entire searches between 2010 and 2012. So that's what I call a major inflection point. It's really, really taking off, which is great. Why is that happening? Well, we all know the business pain and the pain and experiences that we face in terms of bringing new applications to market, updating them, refreshing them, fixing them, and so forth. So I'm actually going to kick off with a bit of research we did last year. Specifically, we did about 12 countries, but I'm going to focus on Iberia, because I'm in Barcelona. And the interesting thing is we asked a number of questions related to application development and delivery. And one of the questions we asked was, this is amongst development, testing, and QA teams, was, on average, how much time does a business give you to develop, test, and deploy a new app? A completely fresh, net new app. Well, the average in Spain is less than 5 months, which is pretty short. The scary bit is if you look at Spain is in yellow, Portugal's in red. In Spain, nearly a quarter only have 3 months or less. That's extremely aggressive. That's extremely tough. We then also asked them, the audience in terms that we surveyed, how often do you experience delays between development and testing because you simply don't have access to test environments and so forth? How long do you spend waiting with significant downtime? Now, there's a group there, the 40% that say, rarely, no, we're fine. But the interesting one for me is the 43% some of the time. So it's like normal. That's life. That's what you expect. And the scary one is frequently and very frequently, 15% or so. So it's a frequent, regular problem. We also ask in terms of the business impact. What percentage of planned releases actually go to market late? And across the board between Spain and Portugal, it's nearly a third, nearly 30% or so. That's an incredible number. So when everyone starts on a new development project, they're almost accepting that there's a 1 in 3 chance that it's going to be delivered late. Even when you're sitting down with the teams, you're agreeing, this is our go-live date, the chances is most companies, they'll make that, but a significant number, 30% won't. So imagine if SEAT did that in other industries. Is that acceptable? You order your new car, and a third of those are delivered 7, 8 weeks, 9 weeks late because we couldn't get the parts. There was this problem, there was that problem. And the last question we asked was around, this is more in terms of from the operational perspective. So once that application goes live, do you have a comprehensive insight into how that, the integrated app is going to, how it could break? What are the danger aspects to that? And 37% or 38% in Spain said, occasionally. Well, this is one of those, hope is not a strategy, but it happens, and that's the reality. So I'll move on now to the study that we commissioned. I think it's the first ever global study that's been done around DevOps. And we surveyed 21 countries, from Australia to the US to China. Within Europe, we surveyed, I think, 8 countries. And we really wanted to kind of explore what people's views were of DevOps and whether they're even aware of it. Where do they see they need to make the major investment? What's stopping them from adopting it as an approach? And, and those who are actually on that DevOps journey, what benefits that they're seeing. So these are the 4 key areas that we'll just run through. The main drivers, what investments they need to make, also how they're measuring it. I saw on the T-shirts here the culture, automation, measurement, and so forth. Measurement, key metrics. How are you quantifying that things are better? And then also, the results. So this is one of the shock slides, which really surprised me. I'm a British guy who lives in Germany. And the key thing before you look at this and say, great, Iberia's leading the way, 33%. It's the ones who don't know what DevOps is. So please stay, don't leave. This isn't my data. This is a third party. I was genuinely surprised by some of this. Being based in Germany, which is very hierarchical, organizational, very, very structured like that, 95% are allegedly, according to the survey, aware of DevOps. In Iberia, as I said, 67% are unaware. So we've got an evangelization job here, a mission. But the really interesting bit linked to this is, then we asked, so do you have a plan or to have a DevOps strategy, or do you already have one in place? And interestingly, with Iberia, okay, it's 36%. Germany, France, kind of very aggressively pushing. But equally, when you map on the awareness levels here, you see, UK, lots of people know what it is, but they're not actually doing it that much. They're not really starting anything. Same thing in Switzerland, same thing in Scandinavia, in the Nordics. In Iberia, it's you've got the real challenge there in terms of awareness and so forth. So if we can kind of move on to another aspect of this, which is, there's lots of ways to address DevOps. There's different facets, different elements. Globally, you ask, what do you see as the most important components? Unsurprisingly, automation. We've heard the presentation on automation being a key aspect earlier on today. Agile, absolutely. That's a critical part. Collaboration, as we know, and bringing development and operations together. If we break that down across Europe, what's interesting is that Agile absolutely leaps out as the kind of core area, and you can see DevOps is helping deliver on the promise of Agile. We see that the push towards more frequent releases and so forth, but also how can we help address the pain of actually then bringing those releases live and into production. It doesn't matter how many applications you're actually working on as a business, it's how many actually go live and the customer sees the benefit of. It's a little bit like 300 people working on a huge, expensive movie that no one ever sees. There's never any real benefit. So, Agile is a big theme. Holland, they're really focused on that. Italy, they're going down the automation route. So are the UK. Collaboration, in terms of working together, big focus in Switzerland and the UK. Then also looked in terms of, the main kind of drivers. What's really pushing businesses and organizations to consider and focus on DevOps? And, absolutely, I think the collaboration, maybe management has seen a number of meetings where it's clear that development and operations are in utterly separate worlds with different drivers and different focuses. What development sees as success and what operations sees as success aren't always the same thing. We also then see, this push in terms of simultaneous deployment across different platforms. I want to look at the cloud, I want to look at mobile and so forth. And then also, release those applications more quickly because we've seen what the competition are doing. We either want to be ahead of them or we at least want to be on the same level. So if we just look in terms of Europe, I've just highlighted, 4 regions. But the UK absolutely feels the impact from the business to release more applications. Do you remember the research I showed at the beginning for Iberia? Well, we did that for the UK as well, and the UK came out as having far and away the greatest number of major applications to release each year. It was 10 or more, so whereas the average was about 5 or 6. France, they're focused on collaboration, same in the Nordics. Germany, have this push in terms of whether it's cloud, mobile, various different platforms. So where does the money need to go? Where does the investment, the time and focus, classic, people, processes, and so forth? Leading the way is obviously, technologies, new tools that you need to be working with, potentially, release automation tools and so forth. But equally, there's also a sense of we need to train the staff we have. They've been here for a number of years. They know how the business works. They know these environments. They have that knowledge over a long period of time. We need to use that. We don't need to lose these people, get rid of them, and bring in a whole load of DevOps ninjas. We absolutely need to educate and bring the existing teams further forward. But also there is an element of bringing maybe some specific DevOps insight and knowledge in some areas. So if we look across the countries, I think what's interesting here is France and Germany and the UK, whoa, they're really into the technology. We need the tools. We need this. We need the new kit. I think, in Iberia, it's training. Like I said, it's taking the skill set you have and enhancing that. And in terms of hiring, I think it's really, really, a positive that, more than a third have said, for example, in Iberia, we also want to look at hiring new people. So that means more job opportunities. That's a positive. But also, what skill sets do we need? So whether you're in development operations, you need to be far more aware now of the impact of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and rather than working in isolation, as perhaps has happened in the past. So leaping out in terms of the business skills, that's what's needed as much as even more than the technical ones. So absolutely forefront is know the business priorities, know why we're doing this, why we need to bring these applications to market more frequently, why we need the better quality. We're having negative customer feedback, we're losing customers. Also that balance between development, maybe sometimes saying do it right now, and operations saying just do it right. There's always this pressure between do we release, do we go live, take a bit of a risk, what's the impact? We had some of the discussions before around if there's a bug, is it a priority bug or a minor one? Is it one person in isolation saying, I really, really don't like that widget or that icon, or is it actually a critical factor in terms of how that application performs? So prioritize. So if we look across Europe and how that's viewed, France, for example, zooming in on the importance of communication skills and so forth. We've also got in Germany, business processes. That's absolutely critical. From the company who, created SAP, that's perhaps not a surprise. In Iberia, same thing though. Again, it's across the board. It's business processes. It's understanding, the whole kind of workflow, the impact, the dependencies, the stakeholders, and so forth. In the Nordics, it's more the overall strategy of the business and how you measure that success. And UK, it's communication skills. There's no even pattern, but what comes out of this is I think all of these are important. Now the bad side, the obstacles. We had the enemies of continuous deployment. Now here we have the enemies of DevOps. Who's against us? And this is one of the hardest things. It's the organizational complexity. It's not just one person. If only he or she wasn't in the organization, everyone would love what we're doing. They believe in DevOps. It's not. It's that historical, that's the way things have always been done around here. Why change? It's working fine for us. And I think, all of our jobs here is to try and promote the benefits and be the evangelist and spread the good news. And I'll talk about some of the metrics towards the end, which hopefully give you a positive story to take back to your companies. The other ones, in terms of roles and responsibilities, we heard earlier on about ownership of code. Is this your baby or is this mine? Who does the buck stop with? Who really owns this problem? And if we look in terms of across the various countries, most of all, it's complexity. It's organizational complexity. It's just hard to work out who owns what, who reports to what, who has this budget, who can deliver, and who says it's not my problem, that's not my priority, that's what I'm not measured on, that's not what I'm compensated on, so what's in it for me? I'm busy. And that is definitely a challenge. And we also look at then the metrics. How do we measure if we're doing well? Are we doing well? Are we progressing? What's working? And we looked at whether organizations are focused on external metrics, which is how quickly we can release those applications, how we can improve the customer experience, impact on revenue, and also then some companies we surveyed looked at the internal factors, number of defects, overall efficiencies, resources to deliver those applications. And the way that breaks down is kind of interesting because in Iberia, for example, far and away, it's the largest number across the whole of Europe are measuring by internal factors. So maybe that's just use. I'd be really interested in the breaks just to understand from you, is that something that you're experiencing or is it more external? I think they're both important. It's just a question of each business and how they set those priorities. In France, it's pretty evenly split. In Germany, it's exactly split. UK, again, though, same thing. It's internal factors. And maybe that's because, I talked about the high number of releases. It's someone saying, your job is to get these 10 apps out this year. You must do this. That's how you'll be measured, not in terms of the customer experience. Personally, I think you need to look at both and you need kind of a balanced view. And here's the really, really good news, the super positives. This is the kind of overall kind of summary from a global perspective. These are just kind of a summary of some of the benefits that organizations are seeing. So you're seeing, frequency of deployment. That's absolutely critical, absolutely fundamental in terms of this continuous deployment message. Getting those applications out so they're being used, you're getting feedback, continuously improving them. Increased collaboration, yes, DevOps is seen to be delivering on that. New software and services, you're a bank. You want to make new functionality available on a smartphone. You want to deliver that. You want it available across iOS, across Android, etc. You want to deliver those fast. You want the quality to be the same across all those different platforms. Well, DevOps is seen to be helping here. If we drill down, from a kind of a summary, from a perspective in terms of impact and the quantifiable benefits, we kind of summarized the various areas there. Improvements in collaboration. We also look at reduction in spend in development operations, which I know to some of you it may be a controversial one, but I think you'd have to look pretty hard to find any business these days that isn't looking at the bottom line and looking at efficiencies. And I think the thing here is for all of us to go back and say, this is how it can be done. This is how we can take existing resources and they can be working on additional applications. We can refocus them. It's not a question, I think, of losing, the people in the team. I think it's actually doing more with the same team, which is what the business wants. That's the absolute priority. So you'll be happy to know this is nearly the last slide. This is some of the hardcore metrics that we saw. And I've highlighted in red the kind of 80-90% most of the times where people have said there's a significant benefit and impact in terms of DevOps. And the interesting thing here is, for Iberia, the one that leapt out for me was an increase in revenue. And this is the metric they've set against this. They've actually said there is a 25% increase in revenue thanks to us taking a DevOps strategy in Iberia. Full stop. 18% increase in collaboration, 19% increase in quality of applications. Well, so what is that costing an organization when, as you all know, fixing a defect in production costs you a huge amount more than it does earlier in the development life cycle? So what's the impact of that? If we look also in Italy, which had a relatively low DevOps awareness, huge impact, 30% increase in quality, 27% increase in revenue, 30% reduction in the spend in development operations. Israel, we also surveyed Israel as well, significant benefits. UK, 22% increase in quality. So across all those 10 or more key applications a year, how much is that, saving the business. So these are not insignificant sums. I've got a kind of a gut feeling that anything more than 20% people will notice. It's enough to, I know it's very arbitrary, but it's enough to really pick up and say, wow, that really is making a difference, especially if you're a larger company. So just in summary, just some kind of key, this is more kind of global, but overall, this is across the world, across the 21 countries. 2/3 either have a DevOps strategy or they're planning to go down that route. More than 90% who have adopted it or are going to plan to or expect to see big benefits. So this isn't, vaporware. This isn't a myth. This is really happening. They're real. They're quantifiable. We're seeing both internal and external factors driving that demand and that push. We need to look at skilling and training the existing staff we have. I mean, this is a very good case actually for pushing the business in terms of taking the money from education or training and saying the team needs this. Send us on these additional courses. Provide us with this additional training. The investment will pay off hugely. There will be a big return on investment because we'll be able to deliver so much more. And in terms of the obstacles, yes, it's the organizational complexity, but I think that's all of our roles to try and go back to the business and say, this is how you could be doing it better. This is how you could be doing it smarter. The silo between development operations and this wall just aren't working. We need to take a different approach. And that is the last slide. So I'm not keeping you from lunch, hopefully. Is anything controversial, interesting? Does anyone want to say completely disagree? Please. Do you need a microphone there for the gentleman? Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Nope. Okay.
Okay. I'm just wondering, the term collaboration or cooperation between teams appears many times as one of the drivers of it, but
yeah.
In general, you don't want better collaboration or improved collaboration by itself. I mean, I'm wondering what is behind that and why are those businesses willing to improve collaboration? It's like,
yeah.
I cannot answer that. When somebody tells me, I want to improve communication, I always ask, what for? Or what are you, better communication to achieving what? So it's surprising to me that this ambiguous term of better collaboration between teams appears so high, because I'm sure behind that there is another further goal. Is better collaboration to what? To lower costs, to prevent operational problems, to, I mean, because if you think you don't have good communication because you are seeing other, it's not because people is not talking. It's because you are saying, okay, I'm having this kind of problem and I think I have a communication problem. Therefore, I want to improve my communication because of my original problem. So what's that original problem?
No, I think they're very good points. And one of the key areas for improvement is communication skills. But that doesn't mean you can write an email blaming development more clearly. That's not communication skills. I meant you. I mean it really clearly. I think it's your fault. I think the collaboration thing is primarily driven from, I think, a combination of people within development operations, but also the business realizing that you have to work more as a collective whole. That there's no complete win if development think, great, we've done a really superb job in terms of coding this app, and it's gone, and we're off down the pub, off down the bar, we're off for the weekend, it's finished. That is the level of my interest. And I think generally you're seeing this opposed to 20 or 30 years ago, not just in IT, but I think generally within organizations, they're aware of how the business is doing. They're more aware. They look at stock price. They look at the news. They see the impact. If you've got a defect in deployment that results in a negative story in the media, you'll find out about it. Your friends will be texting or emailing saying, what's going on in your company? What's happening? So you're very conscious of that brand. 30 years ago, 20 years ago even, it would be buried, no one would cover it, no one would hear about it. But every single error and defect and flaw can be exposed. It's the same with customer service. If you don't like a hotel, you post or tweet something within seconds. It can go viral. We've seen that. I think that's the same thing in terms of people's view of the business and organization and the reputation. And the people who value working there, enjoy working there, that they're bought in as an employee, they want to see that success, and they realize that they can't just go home at 5 o'clock and forget anything else. I think that's an internal factor. And the other one is, I think also management are also saying that's unacceptable. You can't just have this shallow view. Sorry, any comments or disagree? Or does anyone find the statistics surprising or controversial?
Just to summarize, so basically it's involvement. I mean, people get more involved in the business, the technical side.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We can translate collaboration / communication by involvement. Do you think this is a good translation of the real motivation? That people get more involved in the business?
I think so. And just coming back to the whole kind of social media thing, I think people communicate much more than they ever did before. In my first job, if I was out for lunch or I wasn't at my desk, someone put a post-it note on the phone. Yeah, I'm that old. Okay, so I remember that was the way people left messages for you. Now, it's constantly. People in a meeting and they're still getting messages and they're expected to respond. So I think that's also driving collaboration as well. Sorry.
It's breaking up the silos.
Mm-hmm.
Also in operations these days, then you can also get the DevOps guys into the same team, and then you don't have these silo problems, and you can also shorten the time.
Exactly. Some of it is just a personality thing. Like you never see a person in the organization. You might see them in the restaurant or over lunch, but you never ever talk to them, or very briefly. It's like, oh, he's actually a good guy, or I like working with her. They're really nice, and maybe you have something in common socially, and you actually start talking and understanding. They have their pressures, you have your pressures, and you exchange those views. And I think that's the positive part of human nature, that people then want to be successful together. I completely agree. So. One at the back. Sorry.
Hello, thank you very much. I think that the presentation and the information that you have provided us is really interesting. I would like to know, do you have any information about the sample used to get this information? What kind of companies did you interview?
Sure.
What size of companies? And this kind of
absolutely.
things?
What I can do is I work with Rommel to make that available in terms of it was a combination of mostly medium to very large organizations, but in terms of industries it was split amongst manufacturing, banking, telecommunications, etc. It was fairly, and even government, I think. So I need to check, but I can send those. But it was pretty varied, and to be honest, even when I looked at the research, when I saw we were surveying manufacturing, I thought I wasn't really sure, because I thought manufacturing's not really into DevOps and never will be that much. And ironically, if you take that was about 22%, maybe something like that, of the sample. That shows that they're also looking at it as well. It's not even just purely web-facing application. It could be internal applications from a manufacturing point of view. I think we always think of apps. This is probably maybe just me, but more externally facing rather than internally. They're just equally important. You have your internal customers as well, and the quality. If the quality of an internal application isn't good, negatively, we've all seen it with colleagues saying, I need to call IT, this isn't working, there's a problem. That then creates a negative perception of the IT generally within the business and how they're perceived. If they ask for extra budget, if they get it, if they're seen to be doing well, people look more positively. Sorry. Yeah.
A couple of questions. The first one is you ask if we found controversial any of the figures there.
Sure.
If I don't remember bad, I think you mentioned that 33% of people here in Iberia didn't know about DevOps.
Yes.
Don't you think my perception is that more people is not aware of this? I find that figure shockingly low for my perception.
You feel that people are aware of DevOps much more?
Much lower here.
You actually think it's lower? You think it's lower than 33%? That's interesting. So I was expecting to have everyone throwing things at me saying, it's much higher, we are leading, we're doing great. So,
not at all. And
so that's interesting. So I've learned something today. So yeah, I mean, I was generally, I think it shows that it is picking up. I think if you look at some of the metrics to show it is really working in Spain, it tends to suggest there's a hard core of advocates, like everyone in this room, who believes in it, and we're still in a relatively early adoption phase, and we need to start promoting it more. And this is why I'm very pleased to be here and seeing so many people. I was talking to Rommel earlier on, just saying we're very, very pleased with the turnout. You know, I didn't know whether I'd be talking to 10 people or 30 or 40, but you know, there's around 70 people here today, which has to be a positive. So.
Will we have access to this presentation?
Yes, of course, and I can also send you a full copy of the research summary as well if you'd like it. I can also give you the data. You know the first few slides I showed for Iberia? I can also send that to you as well, the whole deck purely for Iberia. Yeah. And if you're in Germany or Switzerland, because I can send that as well. Just come at lunchtime and give me a card or so forth. Thanks. Right. Thanks for your time.